I'm Catherine.
And I'm Aaron.
And we have a story and a testimony we'd like to share with you. For 4 years, we lived in a beautiful home that my husband worked so hard to provide for us, and we loved it. There was one major problem. There was a tree that was threatening to fall on our house, and we prayed and prayed and prayed that God would make a way for the tree to be removed, or that He would keep the tree standing. And it doesn't sound like much, but when you see it every day, and this was a massive, massive tree, it was 120 or 130 years old. When you see it every day, and your children's bedrooms are right next to the tree, and your home is right under the tree, it caused great anxiety. But there's a testimony in that as well, that because of that anxiety that I believe God allowed me to feel and Aaron to feel, we were able to take action, and we were able to trust Him to take care of this situation. Every day before I would leave for work, I passed by the tree as I left my home, and I prayed that God would uphold it as it was leaning towards our house. I prayed that God would hold this tree up with His hand, and I would try to visualize Him actually holding the tree and to see His angels protecting our home. I do believe that God provides a hedge of protection, and it is only because of that hedge of protection that not only are we here, but our children and all of our animals, which are 5 in total, were not only spared, but completely unharmed. And the true testimony is His grace and goodness, and He cares about what we care about, even the smallest detail. The morning of Friday, July 19th, I felt an uneasiness in my spirit. I was actually almost sick to my stomach, and I couldn't really put my finger on why that was. But as I left out that morning, something told me to stop and pray over your dog. And I thought, okay, well, it's just any other day, but I did. I stopped, I turned around, and I said, don't worry, Ramses, I'll see you when I get home. You'll be here, and everything's gonna be okay. I left both of my children at home so I could run errands. I came back, and I picked up one of my children, and we went to Walmart. When I went to Walmart, I pulled into the parking space and turned the car off. I was ready to go in, but something stopped me. I felt very uneasy, and I looked at my daughter and I said, Gloriana, I think I just want to go home. Let's go home. When we made it home, not 5 minutes later, I received a phone call from an arborist who was coming out to look at the tree that we were concerned about. And he showed up about 10 minutes after I arrived home, and he saw the tree, and he looked at me and he said, this is an emergency situation. If I were you and this was my house, I would have no one in this house, especially my children. Nowhere is safe. And that stirred me even more so. I was very anxious and uneasy to begin with, but at that point, I left my lunch on the table, and I walked in. I told my 2 children, that's it. Get your phones, get your chargers, you're going to work with me, let's go. And they said, okay, reluctantly, but okay, let's go. So they came with me.
I was on the phone call, just on speakerphone when she was talking to the arborist, so I heard everything that she was hearing. And we had talked for a second, and then we got off the phone. So I got done with work, and I started heading home, and I gave her a call, and we were just talking, trying to discuss what we were going to do, because it was such a dire situation that we didn't know if we were going to be staying there anymore. It was kind of like we got to figure out where we're going to go and what we're going to do. And so we were discussing that, and I'm on my way home, and as I'm coming home, it's starting to rain really hard, really heavy, really fast. And I immediately started to get concerned, just in my spirit or whatever. I had a bad feeling about the tree, with all that rain. I was talking to her, and she was saying it was raining where we live very hard as well. So I was like, well, I'm gonna come home, check on the dogs, cats, whatever, check on everything, make sure everybody's good, and then I'm gonna meet you up at work and we'll figure it out, right? So, and as we're talking, I'm just looking up at the tree, and I heard 2 loud pops, and next thing I know, I'm watching slow motion the tree fall, and I just kind of froze. I just froze watching it. It was almost like it was in slow motion, and I was thinking in my head to myself, I don't know if this is gonna hit me or not, but I think I'm far enough away from it. But just the roar of that tree as it was coming down and it was crashing through the roof of our house, it was just unlike anything I'd ever heard. And when it finally fell, it missed me in the car by probably inches to a foot at most. It was the canopy right beside me. And I was just kind of like in shock, and of course she's still on the phone, and she didn't even hear it. I guess the sound was so loud, it blocked it out to where she couldn't hear it on her end. So she didn't really know what was going on. So I'm like, it's over, it fell, whatever. And she was upset, and I think I just said, I'm gonna get out and go check on the dogs. And she just got off the phone, and I just ran in and went to the front door, and I had no idea what I was gonna walk into. I had to go up under trees and branches and everything just to get to the front door, because the whole tree covered the whole house, like completely. So when I get in, I open the door, and when I open the door, it's just a chaotic scene. The whole tree was just laying in the house. But I looked down and I saw his crate, and I bent over and looked in there, and he was in there, and he was totally fine. He had like one piece of sheetrock from the ceiling that landed on top of his crate, but he was totally fine. And behind him was just complete destruction. I go in and I open the door, and I can't get it open all the way, so I have to kind of smash it open. And I look down, and our dog is laying on the floor, and he's covered in insulation and whatever, but I can see him laying there, and he wasn't moving, but he's old. He normally doesn't move very much. So I called out for him, and he lifted his head up, and I was glad for that initially, that he was okay. Miraculously, he was untouched, and he clearly he didn't react, and he wasn't able to get up when it happened because he's too old. So that was a miracle. Then the kitten was in there, but we were unable to find him. I kept calling for him, and we thought he was gone. The tree landed right in the middle of our bed, flattened it to the floor just about. And it was throughout the whole room, from one end to the other. And so it didn't look good in that sense. We recovered all our other dogs. They were all safe, unharmed, and nobody was in the house when it fell, or when the tree fell. And it was really just a miracle. It took us 4 days, and we finally found our cat. He came out from under the only part of the bed that was not flattened to the ground by the headboard. Something told me just open the door, shine the light in there just to see if anything looked like it's changed or whatever. And so I opened the door and shined the light in there, looked around, and I heard a small little meow. And when I heard that, my my heart just leaped, and I called for him. I said, Giovanni. And he started meowing, and he got louder and louder, and it was his meow. I recognized it immediately. So I was excited. I ran back out and hollered at them in the driveway, "Hey, he's in here." And they didn't even know what I was talking about at the time. But then you said you started hearing his...
I heard him. He was
heard him
wailing
meowing
at that point.
And so I ran in there, and he was right under the bed in that one little spot.
When Aaron brought him outside, and I thought he would be wet or matted, but he was completely dry, and it's like an angel just picked him up and said, "Okay, you need to be right here," when it happened, and he was completely untouched. All of our animals have a clean bill of health from the vet, which is a miracle. Throughout all of this, it's been very difficult to see all that we've worked hard for literally be destroyed that quickly. That night, before we even had a chance to really process, and we still really haven't processed it, but to really even take it in, our church came out in full force. Our friends, the people from our church showed us the true meaning of the body of Christ. We had the hands, the feet, lots of chainsaws. So many people came out. Even our pastor came out on a Friday night and worked until 2:30, 3 in the morning to help us just be able to access any part of the house we could access and take limbs off of areas and, help secure what area we could secure, which is just a small part of the garage. It was amazing to see. We didn't have to think. I think that was the greatest part of it, is God said, don't worry, I've got this. I've got people who are here to help you, and they know what to do. We didn't have to do anything except say yes, no, thank you. We didn't have to think. And the body of Christ, that's what they're supposed to do. We have been loved on immensely. And we have prayer warriors praying for us as we're navigating the time after that. And it's an amazing, amazing thing to watch. The people of God come together to help someone. And it has blessed us so much more than I think we could ever thank them for.
There's not a big enough thank you that we could say for everyone that came out that night and helped us, and everyone else that just poured out their love, their support, in all kinds of ways. There's just not a thank you big enough.
And of course, the biggest thank you goes to God, and it's not an easy situation. The biggest takeaway that I have from all of this is how God is truly in control. God knows what's going to happen in a moment. He knows what's going to happen in a day. He is faithful. He heard our prayers. He answered our prayers in ways we can't even imagine and tell. And yes, there's a lot of questions that we have. There is a lot that we're facing. But we know that we're facing it with God on our side. We know that we're facing it with a church who loves us. And most importantly, we're not facing it alone.